Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. Good to have you with us. It's been another bad start to the week for the puppet president. Joe Biden has a new poll out from the New York Times showing Biden losing support at a rapid rate. According to that poll, President Trump leads in 5 key battleground states, as young and non-white voters are expressing discontent and frustration with Biden. In Georgia and Nevada, Trump up 10 plus points outside the margin of error. And in Arizona and Michigan, Trump is up 7 points, also outside the margin of error. And in Pennsylvania, Trump is up only 3 points. That's just inside the margin of error. In other words, all good news for President Trump. The good folks at Marxist-run CNN having a meltdown over these latest polling numbers. Listen to this.
Look, these Sunbelt battleground states, frankly, for the Joe Biden campaign, these numbers are an absolute disaster. The smallest lead is in Arizona for Donald Trump. He's up 6. Look at this, 9 in Georgia, 13 in Nevada. My goodness gracious, my God. That is a huge lead. No Democrat has lost that state since John Kerry lost it back in 2004. How about these Great Lake battleground states? This is something that the Joe Biden campaign can work with. Look, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump up 3, but that's well within the margin of error. Wisconsin, Donald Trump up 1, well within the margin of error. And actually, a Joe Biden lead well within the margin of error, up a point here. This they can work with the Joe Biden campaign. This, the Donald Trump campaign, absolutely loves, and it looks like a lot of the other polling on the Sunbelt battlegrounds.
When you're looking into the numbers, why do you think Biden is doing better in the Great Lakes and Trump is doing so much better in the Sunbelt?
Yeah, the Trump coalition is changing. That's basically what's cooking here. This is at least one of the big reasons why. So this is among likely voters in all these battleground states we just spoke about. Back in 2020, 84% of the Trump campaigns, the Trump coalition was white. Look where it is now. It's 78%. The non-white portion of the Trump coalition, it was 13% in 2020. Look at this now. It's 19%. So the Trump coalition is becoming more diverse. And, of course, those Sunbelt battleground states are more diverse than the Great Lake battleground states.
You're looking at the Nevadas and the Arizonas here.
Of course. If you look at Nevada, Arizona, heavy Hispanic population, Georgia, heavily African-American population, with the Michigan does have some black voters in it, but Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are heavily, heavily white.
As with everything that Joe Biden does, when the bad news comes, his puppet masters run to save him. This week, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced coffee prices will no longer be factored into the Consumer Price Index inflation data. It's a really generous move on the part of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but perhaps it has something to do with the fact that coffee has been just rising a little bit for Americans. It has something to do with the fact that since September of last year, coffee prices, in fact, are up 78%, and 3/4 of Americans drink coffee. So, as I said, it's a big favor on the part of the deep state to Joe Biden, but he's used to that. The puppet masters to the rescue for Joe Biden. And Speaker Mike Johnson saying the quiet part out loud in a recent interview with Politico. Johnson telling Politico that, believe it or not, he and Hakeem Jeffries have a lot more in common than most people think. Johnson's comments, of course, came after Jeffries herded up his Marxist Dems to save Johnson from a motion to vacate the chair. Johnson also telling Politico, when Hakeem Jeffries is telling me something, I believe he's telling me the truth. So said Mike Johnson. Wow. I believe he's a man of his word, and I think he believes that about me as well. That's a big thing in Washington, you know. Trust is a rare commodity around here. Well, Mike Johnson should know he's created a lot of distrust over the course of his short term as Speaker of the House. And our guest today is John McLaughlin. He is a top pollster and strategist for President Trump, a great Republican and a great American. And now here is John McLaughlin. And John, always great to talk with you. And now it's going to be more important for everyone in the country to hear what John McLaughlin's saying, because we're less than 6 months from that critical, all important, unprecedented election on November 5th. The numbers look really, really good for Donald Trump. despite everything that they're hitting him with. To me, I marvel that, first of all, the man can stand up to this. And I know him, and I've known him for a while, as have you. We know he's strong as a bull, but he's being hit by freight trains every day. Give us a sense of how strong he is in your polling right now.
Well, since I've polled for him when he first started running in the primaries in 2015, 2016, we've never seen him ahead in the national popular vote for president. And really, since Biden surrendered Afghanistan, President Trump has maintained that lead. Where our last national poll that we published in April, Trump was ahead 49-45, 4-point lead over Joe Biden, an incumbent sitting president. And other polls came out after that poll. CNN had us up 6. Harvard Harris had us ahead. So he's ahead in the national polling average on the Real Clear Politics website. And New York Times has come out with 6 battleground states, and they've got Trump ahead in 5. And these are states that we lost in 2020. And so they've got Trump ahead. And when you look at it, he's ahead in Georgia, and it's not close. It's 50-41. In Arizona, he's ahead 49-43. In Nevada, 51-38, we're ahead. Pennsylvania, 48-45. And Wisconsin, they got us ahead by a point. And Wisconsin's always a toss-up state. And Pennsylvania and Michigan, take it back. Michigan, they have us down by a point. But what's interesting about the Michigan survey is the exit polls of Michigan in 2020 had the Republicans and Democrats tied. And this poll is roughly tied, but with a lot of independents. However, we only lost Michigan by 3 points in 2020. And this New York Times poll has us losing the 2020 vote as a barometer by 9 points. So they've got too many Biden voters in that poll compared to Trump 2020 voters. But what I'm seeing in our polls and what we're seeing in the national polls is there's a Biden 2020 voter nationally and in these battleground states that's voting for Trump now. And they're roughly 4 or 5% of the electorate. And we've been tracking them, and they're a quarter African American, they're a quarter Hispanic, and their average age is 35. They're younger voters. Right. And they're really disillusioned with President Biden because these younger voters, they're coming out of college after racking up debt, and they're not finding the high-paying jobs that they wanted. If their graduations happen at all. I mean, because now you've got these pro-Hamas Palestinian protesters disrupting their graduations, the finals, and all that stuff. And Biden's got a real problem because he can't. His base is split, while President Trump looks stronger all the time, and Biden looks weak. So we never saw these kind of poll results in 2020 or 2016. But now the Democrats are incredulous about it, where you've got Obama strategists like David Axelrod, David Plouffe, saying that Biden just he's not doing what he needs to do to get elected, but he just continues to get on the wrong path on the economy, inflation, and they're talking about spending whatever is not spent, and it'll just we're better than anybody. It'll trigger inflation even worse, while inflation has caused all these voters to come to us.
Yeah, inflation, immigration, for the first time, seeing immigration is actually the number one issue in poll after poll after poll. People don't realize, even though the issue of illegal immigration and border security has been on the popular mind for 25, 30 years, yep. It has never been number one on the list of issues for voters going into a presidential election. This time it's already changed. It's there, and it doesn't show, at least as I read it, any sign of subsiding from that number one position. Your thoughts?
No, as long as the border stays open. I mean, you're seeing millions and millions of illegal immigrants come into the United States, and it's causing what they've always talked about. There was a gender gap, and Donald Trump is expanding his lead with men, closing the gender gap with women, precisely because safety moms, what I call safety moms, are moving to Trump because they're afraid of illegal immigration, the crime that's come with it, and the fentanyl that's come with it, plus the crime that's up in the cities and the suburbs. So these safety moms are moving to Donald Trump because they feel that that Joe Biden has betrayed them. I mean, and it's totally out of control. Where I guess it was Elon Musk called it the Biden registration drive with the open borders, and now you've got members of Congress wanting to require that you have to be an American citizen before you're allowed to register to vote, because they're worried about these illegals are being, registered. They're given welfare, they're given health care, they're given free food, free housing. And you wonder why, so many working class voters, whether they're African American, Hispanic, or these younger voters, why they're moving to the Republicans and to Donald Trump, because they're seeing, their standard of living betrayed by Biden, and they're moving to Trump because he's taking their money and giving it to illegal immigrants and attracting them into the country over these open borders. And Trump always, back in the 2016, when he announced in 2015, had a gut instinct for the immigration issue as a big issue. And under Biden, it's become the biggest issue that's out there. And you're correct. It's the number one thing when you say, what's the most important issue that would decide your vote for president? They're saying immigration, securing the border.
It's interesting to think how right President Trump has been about everything, about what he promised, about what would happen if Joe Biden were in the White House, and what is happening to this economy, this society, this nation right now. We're going to take up all of those things with John McLaughlin, a preeminent Republican pollster and strategist. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next.
We're back now. We're talking with John McLaughlin, and we're talking about the threat, the rising threat, at least in the national media that is even beginning to take notice of this, that we're seeing registration forms in the hands of illegal aliens. We're seeing, for example, in the District of Columbia, they're actually training non-citizens how to vote there. That's a pretty clear statement, isn't it, John, that this is no coincidence that Joe Biden has brought in about 14 to 15 million illegal aliens at his invitation, an invasion of the United States. And he means, I believe, for every one of those folks to have a vote this year.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's a betrayal of American citizens. And plus, if you're a legal immigrant and your family came here, waiting years to get in and do it properly and wanting to be an American, they've just rendered that worthless, because if any illegal immigrant comes in, whether they're a terrorist, a criminal, etc., they're giving them taxpayer funded housing and credit cards and food stamps, etc. And the worst part is states like New York, you have any interaction with the government, they register you to vote unless you decline. They have a green law license for illegal immigrants. Unless you decline, you're put on the voter rolls, and then they don't share that. And in places where these nonprofits, the Soros nonprofits, are bringing illegal immigrants in, they happen to have voter registration forms around the facilities where they're housing them. And so it's pretty obvious what they intend to do. And besides, the New York City Council has tried to make illegal for illegal immigrants to vote in municipal elections in New York. Well, I bet you if they got away with it, because thankfully the courts threw it out as unconstitutional, but if they got away with it, it wouldn't be surprised to see them call a special election on November 5th in New York City that illegal immigrants could vote. So this is something that has to be stopped right away, because and they want to count them in the census for representation, which is electoral college votes. And it's just a massive betrayal of American citizenship that the Biden administration is pushing.
The American people are not famous for paying much attention to some of these critical issues that, as you're describing, when we're talking about really it's reverse suffrage, stripping everyone of their right to both to vote and to have it counted in a proportionate way, at least. We're looking at, 20, 30 congressional seats that are at risk as well if we do not change the citizenship requirement for the census. In other words, count citizens, but do not count persons, because this thing is fully loaded now for a Marxist dim takeover in the next round, the next cycle.
Right. And we by the way, we polled on this in January. It's on our website, McLaughlinonline.com. The Tea Party Patriots, Jenny Beth Martin, we polled it, and 4 to 5 Americans disapprove of this. And they think in order to be registered to vote, you got to be an American citizen. You should show proof of it. You should make sure. I mean, they don't want you to even fill out the registration card, let alone vote, if you're an illegal immigrant. And so President Trump has taken that stand. Speaker Johnson's proposed legislation on that, and it's a powerful issue because it's essential to who what an American citizen is. Right. So that's an important issue for the Republicans and President Trump, and to keep pushing, because the Democrats want to ignore it. Plus, you've got Joe Biden, with his executive order that he's encouraging all sorts of federal agencies, whether it's Department of Education or Health, Human Services, et cetera, to try to register voters and then to encourage them to vote, where we don't have any trust in them not using that for partisan advantage. I mean, it's not a nonpartisan effort. It's it's Biden appointees that are pushing this.
Yeah, there's no such thing, in my opinion, anymore as a bipartisan anything, because the fact is, the Republican Party is they are AWOL. They're missing in action. Only they never got to the action. It's really stupefying to imagine how they could be doing what they're doing. The Marxist Dems, they're actually being recruited. Those illegal aliens are being recruited to vote. Their state governments are working in concert with the federal government. And in the federal government, you referred to the Biden executive order that requires every federal agency to get engaged in turning out, quotes, turning out the vote. This is an outrage, and no one has stopped it. There is no countervailing influence on the right. There is the Republican Party and the person of the Republican National Committee. They are flat-footed and just slack-jawed at looking at all they have to get done. And now that's less than 6 months, because Ronna McDaniel wasn't doing a damn thing for her entire tenure.
Well, I tell you what, Chris LaSavita and Susie Wiles, they got rid of a lot of the dead wood that wasn't doing things. And just this week in Wisconsin, they won a victory in Wisconsin where an Obama-appointed judge threw out Mark Elias' suit or ruled against them that you need a witness to verify an absentee ballot in Wisconsin. So that's their state law. And Elias was trying to say it was unconstitutional. The witness couldn't vouch for all this stuff. So it was critical that we got that thrown out. And now, the witness, you still need a witness to sign an absentee ballot in Wisconsin. But that's what the Democrats were doing, and the Republicans fought them there. There's one little battle. There's a lot of battles that we have to win, because not only do we want to win the battleground states that everyone is identifying with, the 6 or 7 that there are, we've got polls back last week. They were talking about the Trump campaign, where we're running even or ahead in Minnesota with Robert Kennedy, and we're tied. Without him, we're up a little for Donald Trump, and in Virginia, we're trailing by only 3 points with Kennedy in the ballot with 8%. So we've got Minnesota in play and Virginia in play. Plus, there were polls out last week. The Emerson College poll in New Jersey had Donald Trump within 5 points of Joe Biden in New Jersey. And if you didn't believe the poll, take a look at the focus group that he just held in Wildwood, New Jersey, where 100,000 people came out, jammed the Garden State Parkway, and went down to Wildwood and saw his speech. Plus, in New York last month, we had a poll where, even though we lost New York State 61-38, Siena had Trump at 37, Biden at 47. That's only a 10-point lead. And they didn't ask it with Robert Kennedy Jr. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. is a liberal who will take from Joe Biden's base.
No doubt.
So if he makes the ballot in New York and New Jersey, those two states are in play. And you know what I think is contributing to it is the fact that they've got this phony Biden trial where Colangelo, the number 3 in the Justice Department, was sent, to the Manhattan DA's office. The guy, he was number 3 in justice under Merrick Garland. All of a sudden, it's like, I'll take a demotion. I'll be an assistant district attorney in New York. Why? So he could indict Donald Trump, and he's prosecuting the case. They didn't even think Alvin Bragg was smart enough to bring the case. So they sent this guy in. If the Cyrus Vance said no case, Bragg said no case. And now they're seeing it every day. And New Yorkers and people in New Jersey, as well as the nation, are wondering, what's this about? Because our last national poll that we asked about this in April, 66% of the voters said it was politics. 56% said Joe Biden's playing a role in this. And plus you had 53 to 36. They said Joe Biden's doing this just to put Donald Trump in jail to stop him from being president. So
I wonder where they ever got that impression.
Well, you know what? It's mainly coming through on the internet, podcasts like yours. It's coming through on shows like yours because the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, they're trying to legitimize this.
Oh, isn't it stunning to see the outright dishonesty, the corruption of the national corporate media? They're doing exactly what their corporate masters tell them, and they're doing it with a big old anchor grin on their face. And lying to the American people every day. We're talking with pollster and strategist John McLaughlin, great Republican, great American, and we're going to take up here next just exactly how does the Senate and the House play into this, and what are the Republicans doing to make certain that Donald Trump, when he does win, has some back support in terms of the Senate and the House, something he never had in his first term. We'll be right back with John McLaughlin. Stay with us.
Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next.
We're back. We're talking with John McLaughlin, the best pollster in the country as far as I'm concerned, and a great American. I want to go to this Newsweek poll, and Newsweek is an interesting publication right now. It's starting to get harder to define where it is. But in its poll, it's talking about the aging population of the country, baby boomers extraordinarily topping out, if you will. Aging out is, I guess, the better expression. The number of Americans age 65, and everybody listen to this, everyone age 65 and older is now projected to rise from a $58 million level in 2022 to 82 million by 2050. This is unprecedented. We've never seen a situation where there are more aged people in the country than young people. That's where we are. The implications for politics in the country, given those realities?
Well, being a baby boomer myself at the tail end of that, I hope to make 2050, but it's like, but I'm focused on it this year because with Donald Trump, what's interesting about with President Trump running is that we're doing better with Gen Z voters, and the Democrats are apoplectic about that because certainly with the baby boomers, they've got their political views pretty much set, and the ones who are Republicans will vote Republican, the ones who are Democrats will vote Democrat, and then the independents, when 4 to 5 disapprove of the job that Joe Biden's doing, they're coming our way. But in the meantime, you've got a situation where as healthcare in the United States, because it's the best, in spite of what the Democrats have tried to do, it's still the best healthcare system in the world. So Americans are living longer.
You talk about optimism and the fact that the baby boomers are not particularly interested in creating a boom right now because of the economy, because of the malaise that has fallen over this country over the last few years. Donald Trump, interestingly, says, "I'm the only thing keeping the stock market higher." Mm-hmm. And I think some people, particularly in the national left-wing media who want to reject everything he says, think that's bravado, he's absolutely right. If it were not for the anticipation of a Trump presidency as a result of the vote on November 5th, I think the market would be off. I'll be conservative. It would be off at least 20% from here. And it would be on a decline going into the 2025 once those results were confirmed. If he were to lose, I mean, it's a disaster waiting to happen. I think that there is an implicit understanding, an inference on the part of the entire country that without Trump, we don't have a chance in hell. What do you think?
I agree with you. You're more of an economic expert than I am. I'm good at taking polls, and I will tell you during the primary part of the Trump campaign this time, which was a historic win, he won the nomination sooner, faster, and since I'm an old pollster, I used to work for Arthur Finkelstein, who was one of the three pollsters who used to poll for Reagan, so I could go back and look at those polls, and Trump's numbers were better than Reagan's. I mean, our numbers, the landslide we had in Iowa in the caucus, the decisive double-digit win we had in New Hampshire, even with Nikki Haley trying to, outspend us and bring Joe Biden, Democrats who vote in Democrat primaries into our primary, still double-digit win, and then a blowout in Nikki Haley's home state. Part of that was an investor class strategy. Larry Kudlow worked in the Trump administration, and we're friends. And I was talking to Larry, and we needed an investor class strategy because Trump was doing really well with the working class voters, but we wanted college graduates. We wanted people that would have an investment. So we started polling people that had investments and savings. And guess what? All of a sudden, you reminded them about, hey, you did really well when Trump was president and not so well when Biden was president. Because up until that point, the markets were flat. And until they realized that Trump's ahead in the polls, and now the markets are going up again because it'll save the Trump tax cuts. Plus, they're talking about other tax cuts, Trump 2.0, to make the economy grow. The economy, the GDP, the economy, these are things that you're expert in. I'm just watching this, and I'm like, economy's not growing under Joe Biden, but your standard of living's declining because your real wages have declined. Yeah. And people know that. So once we told that to these college graduates, all of a sudden Trump is moving in the Republican primary with college graduates, and you're seeing it in the national polls now, particularly among independent voters, where he's definitely, they're saying, yep, I may not like his tweets, I may not go to the rallies, but you know what? I liked looking at my 401k statements when he was president compared to what it was with Joe Biden for the first 3 years.
I'm laughing as you're talking about these college graduates and your earlier skepticism that you noted about the quality of a college education, I think you just confirmed your skepticism, because frankly, you shouldn't have to remind a college graduate how much better off he or she was just a few years ago. But that's the nature of the propaganda that is being spewed at them every day by the Biden regime, the Marxist Dems, the deep state, in point of fact. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, a report today, by the way, that just kind of amuses me. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has taken coffee out of the market basket of products that are measured for inflation. And the reason is coffee has gone up since last September by 78% in price, and they thought they'd give Biden a little boost if they could. And you know that's happening in big ways as well as small ways in the national economic reporting in D.C. It's very amusing to watch how desperate they are. This desperation does not right now extend to the House because of Mike Johnson, the Speaker, who's under. I have to tell you, I cried, not literally, but I cried at the very idea that Trump would support Mike Johnson, even if no matter what the reason, because he is an oaf and a fraud sitting in that office and a traitor to his party as well as I think the country because of his reversal on whether it be warrantless wiretapping, whether it be federal spending that's rampant. And in the other aspect, there is a question about Mitch McConnell. He's been quiescent. What's he going to do in the Senate? So we've got leadership issues, major leadership issues in both houses. How do you overcome that? How does President Trump overcome that? How does the Republican Party overcome that in time for November 5th?
Well, the interesting thing from my last national survey, Trump was ahead by 4 points, 49-45. The Republican generic vote for Congress for the House was ahead 47 Republican, 43 Democrat. Same 4-point margin. Mm-hmm. The way they're going to keep the House is by aligning with Donald Trump, and you can see it in the primaries. I mean, if Trump endorses a candidate, it just blows out the other candidate. Like I had Brad Knott, North Carolina 13. We're ahead by 7 going into a runoff. Trump endorsed him. All of a sudden, we're ahead by 29 points. So the base is there. Plus, you're winning in the center. So you're winning among independents. You're attracting, right, working class voters plus some college grads for these candidates. So if Trump wins the presidency, and he wins decisively in the popular vote, he's going to have a Republican House. And right now, there's a 1-seat majority. And the last thing that those of us associated with the president, we don't need Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House and derailing all the investigations of the Bidens, plus, coming back after Trump or changing the election laws. We need to hold that majority.
Do you shudder then when you hear Mike Johnson say that he's got more in common with Hakeem Jeffries than anyone would suspect? I mean, the man, there's another issue here. And that's that Republican study group that decides they want to hit the third rail of American politics. 50 years apparently wasn't sufficient evidence for them to ascertain what the consequences are when political parties try to change Medicare, they change Social Security, they're toast. And the entire study group of Republicans in the House come out and say, we want to raise the retirement age. Can somebody shut these idiots up and tell them to forget it?
By the way, Nikki Haley, she said it on tape. We had that audio. That was now granted in South Carolina, we got outspent on TV 18 million to 1. In New Hampshire, we got outspent. But we had her saying on tape that the age of retirement was way too low. I don't know what it is when the Republicans get inside the Beltway. The one thing that the middle class, they felt they've paid into with the payroll tax is Social Security and Medicare. And the government needs to honor that obligation. And the smart economists like Larry Kudlow, Steve Forbes, Art Laffer, Steve Moore, they'll tell you the only way to fix Social Security and Medicare is with economic growth. So
it's not that simple. I mean, it really isn't. 1983, the Greenspan Commission did a marvelous job of fixing Social Security. That is the template for what anyone should do here, almost 41 years later. This is not complicated. You don't need a bunch of pseudo wonks, who get elected every 2 years, suddenly deciding they know economics. They don't, or otherwise we wouldn't have these deficits and this national debt that's piled high. He said gently and, calmly. I'm going to practice calm when I talk about the House of Representatives. I hope that they come to their senses, because there's only one man they should be listening to, and that's Donald Trump, period. And America first, make America great, and shut up. So
right.
You get the last word.
By the way, I think we proved that point in the primaries quite clearly.
Yes.
And we're going to prove it on November 5th. We've got 170 days to go. Hopefully, if they stop counting on election day, as they should. So right now, the polls are looking very good for Donald Trump, but we've got a long way to go. And the one thing we're going to do is we are going to start voting in every state the day that they open up early voting. I predict this year they'll have long lines on the first day of early voting, whatever state it is, because Trump voters are going to come out and they're going to vote in person. Just like they do in Florida, just like they do in North Carolina, just like they do in Texas. We are going to see a Trump invasion of voters who want to throw Joe Biden out, and we are going to be the ones who drive the early voting, and we're going to be the ones that make sure we win on election day, and that Donald Trump's the next president, and he brings with him a Republican Senate and a Republican House.
Yes,
that's the way we straighten out the country.
And the only way. We appreciate it, John. Thanks for being with us as always, John McLaughlin. Great American, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the Great America Show. Our guest will be Jeff Clark, former Assistant Attorney General, the Civil Division he was in charge of for years. He's also one of the former Trump administration officials being persecuted by the Biden Department of Justice. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Truth Social at Lou Dobbs, on Facebook and Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. And watch us weeknights, Lou Dobbs Tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, on Frank Speech, Rumble, X, Roku, you name it. We're ready. We're waiting. Please join us. Thanks, everybody. God bless you, and may God bless